right now. Someone in your life is more invested in proving you'll fail than helping you succeed. They have more energy for listing reasons why your dreams won't work than supporting your efforts to make them work. They have more passion for protecting you from disappointment than celebrating your potential for achievement. And the most dangerous part, you've been listening to them. You've been letting people who never built anything tear down what you're trying to build. You've been seeking approval from people whose opinion shouldn't matter more than your own destiny. There's a train conductor in Chicago who told me something that changed my entire perspective on human interaction. He said, "Dr. Munroe, I've been working these rails for 37 years, and I've learned one thing that saves me more headaches than anything else. When passengers get on the wrong train and start arguing with me about where we're headed, I don't waste my breath trying to convince them. I simply say, 'Sir, this train is going to Detroit. If you want to go to New York, you need to get off at the next station.' You see? My job isn't to change their mind about the destination. My job is to take this train where it's supposed to go." That conductor understood something most people never learn in their entire lifetime. You cannot argue someone into a destination they never intended to reach. You cannot debate someone into success who is comfortable with failure. You cannot convince someone to grow who has made peace with staying exactly where they are right now. As you sit there listening to these words, there are people in your life who are going nowhere and they want to take you with them. They don't want to take you with them because they're evil or because they hate you. They want to take you with them because misery loves company and stagnation feels safer when it's shared. I want you to understand something fundamental about human nature. When you decide to grow, when you decide to pursue excellence, when you decide to become the person you were created to be, you automatically make everyone around you uncomfortable. Your growth becomes a mirror that reflects their lack of growth. Your progress becomes a spotlight that illuminates their lack of progress. Your movement forward becomes a constant reminder that they have chosen to stay still. And what do people do when they're uncomfortable? They try to make the source of their discomfort go away. They cannot make you stop growing by force. So they try to make you stop growing through argument. They will challenge every decision you make. They will question every dream you pursue. They will find fault with every step you take forward, not because your decisions are wrong, not because your dreams are impossible, not because your steps are in the wrong direction, but because your movement makes their stillness obvious. I have observed thousands of people over the past 4 decades of my life, and I have noticed a pattern that is so consistent it could be called a law of human behavior. People who are going somewhere don't have time to argue with people who are going nowhere. People who are building something don't have energy to waste on people who are tearing things down. People who are focused on solutions don't get trapped in conversations about problems. But here's what I've also observed. The people who are going nowhere have all the time in the world to argue. They have endless energy for debate. They have unlimited capacity for finding problems with everyone else's plans. Why? Because arguing takes no skill. Debating requires no talent. Finding fault demands no ability. Anyone can criticize. Anyone can complain. Anyone can find what's wrong with what someone else is doing. But building something, that takes focus. Creating something, that requires energy. Moving forward, that demands commitment. And all of these things, arguing, will steal from you if you let it. Let me tell you what happens when you engage in arguments with people who are going nowhere. It's like trying to teach swimming to someone who refuses to get in the water. You can explain the techniques for hours. You can demonstrate the strokes perfectly. You can show them videos of Olympic swimmers. You can tell them stories of people who learned to swim and went on to become champions. But if they refuse to get in the water, all your teaching is useless. The person who refuses to get in the water doesn't want to learn to swim. They want to prove that swimming is impossible or dangerous or not worth the effort. They don't want solutions. They want excuses. They don't want progress. They want company in their fear of progress. And while you're standing there on the side of the pool, trying to convince them to get in the water, everyone else is swimming past you. While you're explaining why swimming is possible, other people are already doing laps. While you're arguing about the benefits of swimming, champions are being made in the water you're not in, because you're too busy arguing with someone who will never get wet. This is not about being mean to people. This is not about being arrogant or thinking you're better than anyone else. This is about understanding that your time on this earth is limited, your energy is precious, and your calling is too important to be derailed by people who have no intention of moving forward. When you argue with people who are going nowhere, you're not helping them, you're joining them. You're not lifting them up. You're coming down to where they are. You're not being a good friend. You're being an enabler of their stagnation. The kindest thing you can do for people who are going nowhere is to continue going somewhere. The most loving thing you can do for people who refuse to grow is to keep growing. The most helpful thing you can do for people who won't pursue their dreams is to pursue yours with such passion and commitment that they can see what's possible. Your success is not an insult to people who are failing. Your progress is not an attack on people who are standing still. Your growth is not a judgment on people who refuse to change. Your success is an invitation. Your progress is a demonstration. Your growth is proof that change is possible. But they have to accept the invitation. They have to watch the demonstration and be inspired by it instead of threatened by it. They have to see the proof and be motivated by it instead of intimidated by it. And if they choose to be threatened, intimidated, and resistant to what you're showing them, that's their choice. But it doesn't have to be your problem. Let me tell you about two farmers who lived next to each other in rural Alabama. The first farmer, let's call him Thomas, had inherited his land from his father and had been farming the same way for 20 years. Every morning, he would walk over to the fence that separated his property from his neighbors and spend 2 hours complaining about everything. The weather was wrong, the government was corrupt, the market prices were unfair, and his neighbors' farming methods were completely backwards. The second farmer, named William, had purchased his land just 5 years earlier. Every morning, while Thomas was standing at the fence waiting to share his complaints, William was already in his fields. While Thomas was explaining why this crop wouldn't work and that technique was doomed to fail, William was planting, watering, and tending to his harvest at the end of the first year. Thomas barely broke even. His crops were mediocre, his yield was low, and his profits were almost nothing. William, on the other hand, had one of the most successful harvests in the county. But instead of celebrating William's success, Thomas became even more angry. He spent even more time at the fence, arguing that William must be cheating somehow, or that he was just lucky, or that his success wouldn't last. By the third year, the difference was dramatic. William had expanded his operation, purchased new equipment, and was being sought after by other farmers who wanted to learn his methods. Thomas was falling further and further behind, and his morning complaints had turned into afternoon complaints and evening complaints. He was spending more time arguing about why farming was impossible than he was spending actually farming. Here's what Thomas never understood. Every minute he spent at that fence arguing was a minute he wasn't spending in his field growing. Every hour he invested in explaining why something wouldn't work was an hour he wasn't investing in making something work. Every ounce of energy he put into being right about why others were wrong was energy he wasn't putting into being successful himself. William figured this out early. After the first few months of listening to Thomas's complaints, William made a decision. He would wave politely at Thomas when he saw him, but he wouldn't stop working to engage in arguments. He would nod respectfully when Thomas shared his opinions, but he wouldn't defend his own methods. He would wish Thomas a good day, but he wouldn't try to convince Thomas to change his approach. You see, William understood something that most people never learn. Human energy works exactly like electricity. When you try to power too many things at once, you don't get more power in each thing, you get less power in everything. When you spread your electrical current too thin, nothing operates at full capacity. When you argue with people who are going nowhere, you're spreading your life current too thin. You're trying to power their understanding, their motivation, their decision making, and their progress, while simultaneously trying to power your own growth, your own goals, your own dreams, and your own success. And just like an electrical system that's overloaded, nothing works properly. Successful people understand this principle instinctively. They protect their energy like a precious resource. They invest their attention like a wise investor. They spend their time like someone who knows they can never get it back. But here's what's fascinating about energy and attention. The more you concentrate it, the more powerful it becomes. When you stop scattering your focus on 100 different arguments with 100 different people, and you start concentrating that same focus on your own growth and development, you become like a laser beam. A light bulb can illuminate a room, but a laser can cut through steel. Same energy, different focus. This is why successful people seem to attract opportunities that other people don't even notice. It's not that they're luckier or more talented or born with some special advantage. It's that their energy is concentrated and focused. So they operate like magnets. They draw toward themselves the people, resources, and circumstances that align with their direction. When your energy is scattered, arguing with everyone who disagrees with your path, you become like a broken magnet. Instead of attracting what you need, you repel what you want. Instead of drawing opportunities toward you, you push them away because you're too busy being right about why other people are wrong. The people who achieve extraordinary things in life have learned to be selfish with their energy and generous with their results. They refuse to waste their power on people who drain it, so they have maximum power available for people who deserve it. Now I need to teach you how to recognize quicksand when you see it, you see. People who are going nowhere don't announce themselves. They don't walk up to you and say, "Hello, I'm going nowhere and I want to take you with me." They're much more subtle than that. They disguise their stagnation as wisdom. They package their fear as caution. They present their excuses as reasons. But once you know what to look for, you can spot them from a mile away. People who are going nowhere have a very specific pattern of behavior. They always have more reasons why something won't work than ideas about how to make it work. They always have more examples of people who failed than stories of people who succeeded. They always have more energy for explaining why you shouldn't try than enthusiasm for what you might accomplish. Let me tell you about a young woman named Grace who almost lost the opportunity of her lifetime because she didn't recognize this pattern. Grace had been working as a secretary for 5 years when a businessman offered her a partnership in a new venture. It was risky. It required her to leave her secure job, and it demanded that she learn skills she had never developed. But the potential was extraordinary. Grace was excited about the opportunity, but she made one critical mistake. She decided to discuss it with everyone in her family before making her decision. For 3 months, she presented the opportunity to her relatives, hoping to get their support and blessing. And for 3 months, they gave her every reason why she should not take the risk. Her mother said it was too dangerous to leave a secure job. Her father said she didn't have enough experience to be a partner in anything. Her brother said the businessman was probably trying to take advantage of her. Her sister said she should be grateful for what she already had instead of reaching for more. Her uncle said most new businesses fail within the first year. Her aunt said she should wait until she was older and wiser. Month after month, Grace found herself defending the opportunity instead of preparing for it. Week after week, she was explaining why it might work instead of learning how to make it work. Day after day, she was arguing with people who had never taken a risk in their lives about whether she should take the biggest risk of hers. By the time Grace realized what was happening, it was almost too late. The businessman had grown tired of waiting for her decision and had offered the partnership to someone else. Grace had spent so much time trying to convince her family that the opportunity was worth taking that she had missed the deadline for taking it. Fortunately for Grace, the other person declined at the last minute, and she was able to accept the partnership. But she learned a lesson that changed her life forever. She learned that people who have never climbed a mountain will always have more advice about why you shouldn't climb than guidance about how to reach the summit. Here's what Grace discovered about people who are going nowhere. They're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to protect you from what they're afraid of. But their protection becomes your prison. Their caution becomes your cage. Their fear becomes your limitation. People going nowhere always try to make others join their stationary position because movement makes them uncomfortable. When you're standing still and everyone around you is standing still, you feel normal. But when you're standing still and someone near you starts moving, you suddenly feel left behind. And rather than start moving themselves, most people try to convince the moving person to stop. Water is one of the most powerful forces on earth. Yet it never argues with the rocks in its path. When a river encounters a boulder, it doesn't stop flowing to debate whether the boulder should move. It doesn't waste energy trying to convince the boulder that it has the right of way. The water simply flows around the obstacle and continues toward its destination. This is exactly how you must learn to handle people who are going nowhere. You don't stop your forward movement to argue with them. You don't waste your energy trying to move them. You flow around them like water flows around rocks, always maintaining your direction, always moving toward your destination. I want to tell you about a man named James who understood this principle better than anyone I've ever met. James started his first business when he was 25 years old with nothing but an idea and $500. His idea was simple but revolutionary for his industry, and he knew it could change everything. But James made an interesting decision that most entrepreneurs never make. From the very beginning, he established what he called his no argument policy. Whenever someone tried to engage him in a debate about why his idea wouldn't work, why his industry was too competitive, or why he should choose a safer path, James would listen politely for exactly 60 seconds. Then he would say, "I appreciate your perspective, but I have to get back to building my business." His friends thought he was being rude, his family thought he was being arrogant, his colleagues thought he was being foolish, but James understood something they didn't understand. Every minute he spent defending his vision was a minute he wasn't spending building his vision. Every hour he invested in convincing doubters was an hour he wasn't investing in attracting believers. While his competitors were busy arguing with critics, James was busy serving customers. While other entrepreneurs were defending their business plans at family dinners, James was refining his business plan in his workshop. While his peers were explaining why their ideas would work within 2 years, James had built a 6-figure business within 5 years. He had created a 7-figure enterprise. Within 10 years, he had developed a multi-million-dollar company that employed over 200 people. And here's the remarkable part. He did it all without winning a single argument. James never convinced his doubters that his idea was good. His success convinced them. He never proved to his critics that his path was right. His results proved it. He never won debates about whether his business would work. His business worked. And that ended all debates. This is what I call the lighthouse method. A lighthouse never leaves its position to chase ships and convince them to come to shore. A lighthouse simply stands firm, shines its light consistently, and lets ships that need guidance find their way to safety. The ships that don't need the lighthouse ignore it and sail past. The lighthouse doesn't argue with them or try to convince them they're lost. You must learn to be a lighthouse in your industry, in your community, in your family. Stand firm in your purpose. Shine your light consistently through your actions and your results. Let people who are ready for growth find their way to you, and let people who aren't ready sail past without trying to stop them or convince them they need what you offer. When you program a GPS system in your car, something fascinating happens. Once you enter your destination, the GPS calculates the most efficient route and begins giving you directions. But here's what the GPS never does. It never stops to argue with pedestrians about whether your destination is worth reaching. It never pauses to debate with other drivers about whether your route is the best one. It never gets distracted by people who question why you're going where you're going. The GPS has one job: to get you from where you are to where you want to be. And it does that job with unwavering focus, regardless of what anyone else thinks about your journey. Okay, this is exactly the mentality you must develop when you're clear about your life's destination. When you know where you're going, you don't stop to argue with every person who questions your route. When you're certain about your purpose, you don't waste energy defending your path to people who have no intention of walking it with you. But most people live their lives without ever programming their internal GPS. They wander aimlessly, taking advice from everyone they meet, changing directions every time someone suggests a different path, stopping to debate every alternative route that's presented to them. They spend their entire lives asking for directions from people who are just as lost as they are. Let me tell you about the mathematics of success, because this is something most people never calculate. If you spend just 1 hour every day arguing with people who are going nowhere, that's 7 hours per week. 7 hours per week equals 364 hours per year. 364 hours equals 45 8-hour workdays. That means you're spending 45 full workdays every year engaged in arguments with people who will never change their minds. But here's what happens when you take those same 45 days and invest them in your own growth instead. If you spend 1 hour every day reading books that expand your knowledge, you'll read approximately 50 books per year. If you spend 1 hour every day developing a new skill, you'll become proficient in that skill within months. If you spend 1 hour every day building relationships with people who are going somewhere, you'll create a network of opportunities that can transform your entire life. The compound effect of this choice is staggering. In 5 years, the person who argues for 1 hour every day will have spent 225 full work days arguing. The person who grows for 1 hour every day will have read 250 books, mastered multiple skills, and built relationships with hundreds of successful people. Which person do you think will have more opportunities? Which person do you think will have achieved more success? Which person do you think will be living the life they dreamed of? This is why your purpose is too important to be derailed by people who have no purpose. Your vision is too valuable to be diminished by people who have no vision. Your dreams are too precious to be destroyed by people who have given up on their own dreams. But I need to address something that might be troubling you as you listen to these words. You might be thinking, but Dr. Munroe, what about loyalty? What about family? What about friends who have been in my life for years? Are you telling me to abandon everyone who doesn't support my goals? Let me be very clear about this. I'm not telling you to abandon anyone. I'm telling you to stop trying to drag unwilling people toward destinations they don't want to reach. I'm not suggesting you be unkind to people who disagree with your choices. I'm suggesting you be wise about how much time and energy you invest in trying to change their minds. There's a difference between loving people and letting them control your life. There's a difference between caring about people and allowing them to sabotage your future. There's a difference between being loyal to people and being enslaved by their limitations. The most loving thing you can do for people who are going nowhere is to show them what going somewhere looks like. The most helpful thing you can do for people who have given up on their dreams is to pursue yours with such passion that you remind them what passion looks like. The kindest thing you can do for people who are comfortable with mediocrity is to become excellent, not to become mediocre with them. When you achieve success, when you reach your goals, when you become the person you were created to be, you give everyone around you permission to do the same. Your success doesn't hurt people who are failing. Your success shows people who are failing that failure is not permanent. Your growth doesn't insult people who are stagnant. Your growth proves to people who are stagnant that growth is possible, but they have to want it. You cannot want success for someone more than they want it for themselves. You cannot be more committed to their future than they are. You cannot work harder on their dreams than they work on their dreams. And while you're trying to convince them to want what you want for them, life is passing you by. While you're arguing with them about why they should change, opportunities are passing you by. While you're debating with them about the importance of growth, other people are growing past you. So here's what I want you to do starting today. I want you to make a commitment to yourself that will change the trajectory of your entire life. I want you to commit to protecting your energy like it's the most valuable resource you possess. Because it is. I want you to commit to investing your time only in people and activities that align with your forward movement. When someone tries to engage you in an argument about your goals, your dreams, your plans, or your purpose, I want you to remember the train conductor from Chicago. Your job is not to convince them that your destination is the right one. Your job is to take your life where it's supposed to go when someone tries to discourage you from pursuing excellence. I want you to remember the two farmers from Alabama. One spent his time arguing about why farming was impossible. The other spent his time farming. One failed, the other succeeded. The difference wasn't talent or luck or circumstances. The difference was focus. When someone tries to make you feel guilty for leaving them behind, I want you to remember that you're not leaving them behind. You're going ahead, and the door is always open for them to follow, but they have to choose to walk through it. You cannot carry them through it. Your life has a destination. Your existence has a purpose. Your time on this earth has meaning. Don't let people who are going nowhere convince you to join them in their journey to nothing. Don't let people who have given up on their dreams talk you out of yours. Don't let people who are comfortable with limitation make you comfortable with less than you're capable of becoming. The world needs what you have to offer, but only if you offer it. The world needs the contribution you're capable of making, but only if you make it. The world needs the example of excellence you're capable of becoming, but only if you become it. Stop arguing with people who are going nowhere. Start moving toward the somewhere you're destined to reach. Your destination is waiting for you.